Look, firstly, I think the location of this forum in Gaziantep was critical because of the experience of the city around refugees, and obviously 500,000 refugees. For those of us who have come into the city, it has given us the chance firsthand to understand what it is to actually integrate such a large number of people into a society with all the challenges that brings. I think from a finance sector perspective, the critical element here is that what happens on the ground at a local level needs to be supported by the finance sector. The finance sector is not an industry that's outside of society. It is absolutely part of society. So if you have issues in society that, whether it's climate change, whether it's disruption such as that causes refugees, the finance sector has a role to actually addressing these kind of issues. It's in their incentive to do so. If they do it well, if they do it right, then the finance sector environment is actually then a good one. The other side is that the finance industry is global. So institutional investors are global. So whereas I come from an Australian perspective, the rules that effectively we operate under and the environment that we invest into is really global. So coming here, I think was important to participate, to have our voice heard and say that the finance sector has a role to play, and really to learn what is happening on the ground. So the issue for refugees, wherever they are, so whether they're in a settled population, so they're not returning in the short term to their society, or whether in a temporary situation, is that they're not able to access finance in the way that the host population will be. And finance in modern economies is critical to unlocking economic opportunity. So for instance, the link to finance and employment is that if a refugee isn't able to buy a car, or isn't able to buy tools of trade for their work, or even set up a home near employment opportunities, then there's really a strong disincentive. It really impacts on the refugee to participate in economic opportunities. So that's what we're trying to unlock. But we can't unlock it using the same model. We have to actually innovate and create new models. So what we're working on at the moment is there's a lot of work around what's called income contingent loans. And income contingent loans, the fundamental difference between these kind of loans and say the loan that you have to pay for your house or your car, is that those kind of loans are time-based. You pay them off over time. So the bank doesn't really care whether it's going to be hard for you to pay 1 month or the other. They just say your payment's due next week, you have to pay it. With income contingent loans, the loan repayment relates to your capacity to pay, so you pay when you can afford it. And there's examples of those in higher education. In Australia, for instance, we have a scheme that's operated for 30 years that's given people access to basically university degrees. And they pay off the loan over the course of their employment with the government part of the scheme. So we see that there's 3 potential models. There could be a government model, there could be a private sector model, or a philanthropic model, and that's the work that we're trying to do. What we understand though is that if we do this work, because the finance system is global, because the rules of, say, the banking sector in particular are global rules, whatever we do in Australia will actually have relevance elsewhere, just as whatever happens elsewhere is relevant to Australia. So we think if we can get some models here, they're certainly worth sharing. And I think they could be then replicated in different local situations. Understanding everyone's situation will be different, but if we can get the same international frameworks, the same finance mechanisms, then if we can build something, then it's probably has the capacity to be used elsewhere. Can I say, this is a personal Australian perspective. We are a young country, we are a migrant country, and migration has been fundamental to the culture that we have in Australia. But what was really important is coming to see Gaziantep and seeing the history, the oldest, one of the oldest cities in the world historically, but also to see the role of the Silk Road. So in my mind, the Silk Road is like a port. it was a road that basically where people travelled through, and therefore there's an openness that comes from that, just as we see in port cities around the world. So I really learnt a lot just coming to this city, so I really thank our hosts for the opportunity.